So welcome to Walsall United WSC.
Good afternoon and welcome to Walsall United WFC for the last time this season. It's been a roller coaster of a season for sure. Some good times and some not so good times, which is part of the parcel being a football fan. But as usual, I'm joined by John for one last time this season. How are you today, John?
Yeah, good, thank you. Yeah, I kind of had fun telling my mates a little bit about what happened at Kings Meadow, and I mean that like in the nicest way possible. I do think it was a good day. At least in that first half, we gave our all. We was looking really positive in that first half, so we could definitely take that away from it. And it just, unfortunately, that second half, Chelsea just turned it on the way that we kind of knew that they would. But the fans were in good spirits. Obviously, Skinner came over again at the end. The players, obviously, as always, come over. And it was a nice end to the season, obviously, apart from the result. Because at one point, we just genuinely thought that we might have got at least a draw from it. But unfortunately, it wasn't meant to be. But yeah, so it's not been a bad week. Obviously, now the attention turns to international duty and transfers. We've heard that Carter Solskjaer has already gone back to Norway, and that's going to be a permanent fixture. So, obviously we've lost Carter, but there's going to be a few more stories like that, I'm sure, going forward. So plenty of things to be looking out for over the summer, that's for sure.
Yeah, no, definitely, and I'm sure we'll be kept up to date with the WSL transfers and all that, with all for United WFC and that. So it's part of the merry-go-round, as you do at this time of year. They're going here, they're linked with there. Us United fans, we're like, get this, get them. So, God, it's going to be a lot. Well, with the Euros thrown in, it's going to be probably a long few months. Obviously, people get the transfers done before the Euros or after. Could be a hectic month, August, especially with the likes of Spain, who would be one of the favourites to get to the final. So, but that's a story for another day. We'll go over the weekend's results and we'll have a little discussion. So you had Villa, Birmingham won 1-0. Unfortunately for Birmingham, it was a little bit too late with them picking up some points. Brighton, Everton ended with a draw. I think that was only Brighton's second draw of the season. Unfortunately, Chelsea beat United 4-2. Spurs won 1-0, which I predicted correctly. And Arsenal won 2-0 against West Ham. So, unfortunately, with them results, and even if United had pulled off a remarkable result, unfortunately, we still would have missed out on Champions League football. Which are you slightly gutted with, John, considering the situation we were in a couple of months?
It's disappointing, obviously, because when you've got something so close and you don't get it, it feels 10 times worse. If we got off to a very bad start to the season and we finished fourth, then all of a sudden it's not that much of a bad thing. But because we started the season really well, you start thinking, okay, we're going to be in the qualifying stages and we're going to be going around Europe, and traveling, to cup games over there midweek. And, you do start getting very excited about it. You start thinking about, if we're in Champions League, we stand a better chance of keeping certain players and attracting new players. And also, it's good to be able to say that we've moved forward from fourth to third as well. So, yeah, it's disappointing. But I think, when it's less raw and you look back, you can certainly say, well, the top three teams did win. The top three teams did achieve top three this season. City went something like 14 out of 15 games winning to achieve that position, which is remarkable, so they thoroughly deserve that. So, you have to be a bit honest. We weren't the third best team this season. At times we were, but it's done have a 22-game season, isn't it? So, yeah, disappointed, but your attention turns to next season now and take your learnings from this one and go from there.
Would you say we've taken a slight step back this season with what's gone on? Obviously, it was goal difference last season.
Mm-hmm.
That stopped us from qualifying for Europe, but it was a bit of a sense of deja vu. We were in a good position. But with what's gone on, and it's taken time for Skinner to implement his ideas, would you say we've slightly stuttered a bit, like gone back ever so slightly, or would you say we're sort of in a similar situation?
I can't be like a hypocrite. So at the start of the previous season, I was saying, well, we've closed the gap from 13 points behind top three to I think it was 1 point behind with a weekly goal average.
5 points.
Yeah.
5 points. When you look at that, you think, how was it 5 points?
Yeah, I get that. So obviously it's the worst season, but it's not necessarily a worst season for the players and the manager. I think it's the worst season for the club. The club's the one that kind of put us in this position where we had to rebuild and start off on the back foot. For the first 3 or 4 months, you could argue that we was punching with one arm behind our tie behind our back. We didn't have the transfer window that we wanted. We had a brand new manager who didn't bring in any of his own signings. So, I think the players and the managers probably done the best that they could do, apart from the odd mistake here and there. But they all make mistakes. But as a club, you'd like to think after 4 years of being around now, you'd have thought that fourth, and third was a realistic goal. But I think for our particular players and for our manager, I don't think third was expected. I think it was always going to be a target, but I don't think it was expected.
Yeah, no, I fully agree with you. Obviously, going into the season, people were thinking we wouldn't do as well. We'd struggle to even get fourth. So
yeah,
we've managed to stay consistent, staying fourth. But is next season, do we get to the stage now where it's sort of is a must? We need to be getting top three.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, because you've been around then for like 4 years in the WSL, you need to be starting seeing improvement. But I don't want to go into that start that season saying we're definitely going to be in the top three if I see players that are matching City, Chelsea, and Arsenal. So at the start of the season, when you get them squads up there and you start seeing our squad compared to our rivals, then that's when I'm going to start saying, well, look, it's expecting now. And even then, it might take a few weeks, a few months for certain players to adjust. So it's not going to be easy, even if we do get a strong transfer window. However, like I say, as a club, we can't go 4 seasons on a trot, finishing fourth and thinking that's acceptable, because somewhere along the line, you need to make that jump, don't you? And I really hope that the club backs Skinner in certain aspects. I'd love to know what the club have said to Skinner, what his expectations were this season and obviously next season as well. I'm pretty sure that Skinner wasn't told that he had to make top three this season just gone. So will he be told the same this season coming? I genuinely don't know. But if Skinner is told that his expectation is top three, then I'll be turning around and saying to his bosses, look, well, if that's the case, then you've got to give me players to match the other top 3 teams, and that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, no, I agree. Obviously, with top 3, I think it shows with the squad we have compared to the top 3 that if they're being serious about getting top 3, we do need to not just get the squad depth, because we do have a bit of the squad depth, but it's all right having squad depth. But you need the players good enough to come on that are going to possibly improve the side not players where you think, oh, well, we've taken Jackie off and brought, say, Lucy off. Is it really going to improve it much? Yeah, fresh legs and that, fresh ideas. But you look at the likes of Chelsea, for example. Pernilla Harder doesn't start, but you have Sam Kerr. Take Sam Kerr off, bring on Pernilla Harder.
Mm-hmm.
There's no respite. You got to worry about that one player now. Well, more than that one player, but you've still got to worry about a player who is at the top of the international pedigree. Whereas with us, this season, Russo didn't miss a game. And she got taken off a few times. And yeah, there is goals in the team, but we haven't been in that position where you think, oh, Russo's gone off now. We're now going to be a bigger threat, because Russo was our main attacking outlet this season. Whereas, like I said, with Chelsea, with Arsenal, if Wiedemar doesn't start, you got Stina Blackus. So it's them people that are still going to scare the life out of the opposition. And I do think we're just slightly a bit below in terms of substitutions. Would you agree? What would you say on the matter?
Massively. If you have a look at the biggest criticism of Skinner in the second half of the season, I'm not going to say the first half, because the first half of the season he was getting criticised for everything. But I think the one thing that's kind of stayed with him over the course of the season is substitutes. Now, there's obviously a reason why he didn't choose to make as many subs as fans would like, and that's purely because he obviously thought that a 50 to 70% Leah Galton is still more useful than 100% Ivana Fuso or Kirsty Hansen. Now, Skinner never went into that game thinking, "Oh, right, I'm going to go and lose this game." You know, he obviously thought that was the right decision to do, game in, game out. You could always say, "Yeah, new ideas bring something." However, are those players coming off the bench going to be able to execute those new ideas? He obviously thought not, hence why not many substitutions were made. I agree with Russo. So Russo was subbed off roughly about 20 minutes ago in a number of matches. That could be for a variety of reasons. Probably because she was working so hard that she probably didn't have, she just was pretty much dead on her feet. And yeah, I think that the more, we do need subs who are just natural. You need two lots of 11s, don't you? You need two starting 11s. At the moment, we haven't got that. Potentially against the weaker clubs, we might see that. But the last three games that we played was the same starting 11 in each game. I don't think anyone really came close. So you have a look at that starting 11 that we kind of finished the season with. I think, it's decent, not too bad at all. But then you look at the subs that came on, they hardly got any minutes throughout the whole season. Hansen, Fuso, they hardly played throughout the season. Carrie Jones hardly played throughout the season. Vilda Balvisa was pretty much a substitute player. I think she started the season with a few Conti Cup games, but she was never first choice until maybe Jackie got injured. So, yeah, it's a massive loss because we're struggling too much. We always moan about the end of the game where we concede late goals. Well, this is probably the reason why, because the fitness wasn't there at the end. So we do need to bolster our squad so that we can make like-for-like swaps, like-for-like changes, and it won't impact the game in a negative way.
Definitely. And you mentioned Skinner not using his subs, but it wasn't just a Skinner thing, was it? Casey was very much the same.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's an interesting point to make, and we've said this on Twitter, this isn't just down to Skinner. Injuries and fitness off the field, in training. All the injuries that we've had this season, not many of them come from the actual game itself. A lot of it comes from what's going on in training. So are our players as fit as we think that they are, or as fit as they should be? Possibly not. So, Casey obviously knows these players really well, and she made the same kind of decisions. I do think that both managers are different tactically, by the way. I do think there is a difference there, of course. But as a manager, sometimes you're too scared to change it because yes, you might change it for the better, but you've also sacrificed it. Every player that starts in that starting 11 is your best player, hence why they're starting. So yes, you might think to yourself, right, if I bring Hansen on, she can run as a player, yes, but you're also losing something that you're taking off to replace her with. So until you get like 22 players that are all pretty much on a level playing field, who are all top 3 quality, then we're going to be in the same boat next season, I think.
Yeah, no, I fully agree with everything you said there. Tactics were different. You could see that.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing that didn't change was the position. So we ended 4th, unfortunately, but we've got to work on improving that next season. Now, we have to discuss Chelsea. Obviously, they've won the WSL now for the 3rd year in a row. And you have to congratulate Emma Hayes. But Chelsea are an example of what having the squad depth can do for you, and the quality. Look at Lauren James, for example. She didn't hardly play, but to have that option, it would have been brilliant for her. And obviously, they fully deserve it. Yeah, any team that wins the league fully deserves it. But like we've been discussing with squad depth, it does. They've been consistent. They did have a little wobble in December, but other than that, they were the best team, and it just shows you having a big squad can make a big difference. They didn't get as far in Europe as Arsenal. So, what are your thoughts on Chelsea as champions?
Yeah, I've always said it, and I've said it on this show as well. The league doesn't lie. So if you're top after 22 games, it's because you deserve it. You can't fluke that after 22 games. So, of course, they deserve it. It was only 45 minutes away from slipping up, though. So it just shows how close the league actually was. Arsenal started off the season really well, finished the season well. Both teams slipped up in the middle, but Arsenal a bit more so. And Chelsea is just so strong. But they're not just strong in regards to the amount of good quality players they've got. They've got that consistency there as well. And I always shout about this. The manager has been there for 10 years. They didn't make too many changes throughout the summer. And that means a lot. Every player kind of knows everybody's role. And even if you do need to make a substitution or someone's playing out of position for 15, 20 minutes of the game, then it's okay because everyone kind of knows what to expect. And I think that's where they've kind of got one up on Arsenal this year. The manager there has done a fantastic job to go from 3rd to 2nd as he has this year. But I think the difference is just that togetherness that Chelsea's had for a long time has tipped them over the edge, and well done to them. Going on for next season, Karen Carney at the end of Sunday said, Man City is, her favourites for next season. If Man City didn't have all those injuries, would they have picked up them extra like 10 points or so and challenged Chelsea? There's loads of ifs and buts there, but we're saying how well Chelsea did. Could Chelsea have done much more this season? Possibly not. Could City have done much more this season? Absolutely. So, it's we've got a long way to go to kind of catch those three, and it starts this summer. Yeah,
no, definitely. I couldn't agree more with what you've said. Obviously, after 22 games, Chelsea fully deserve it. Things happened with City, didn't they? They had that injury crisis for a bit, and it did show for a little while. But regarding Arsenal, do you think there'll be a slight doubt of regret? Do you think that they will be thinking that got away from us? We really should have won the league.
I don't know about getting away from us, but I think they'll look at one particular result against a team bottom of the league where they thought, if they had just got something from that, if they had got a draw, would that have clinched it on goal average? Yeah, it would.
They had goal difference.
Yeah, So as much as Man United fans like to look back and say, "Oh, if we had done this, if we had done that, if we had conceded against Tottenham, we could have potentially got Champions League." I get that, but look at Arsenal. They lost to bottom of the league. If they had just got a point there, they would have won the WSL.
Yeah.
So you can always look back and think, if we had done things differently. But that's why there's 22 games. That's why there's a league structure there. So Arsenal definitely would go away at the end of it thinking, there was a chance there. There was an opportunity where we've made a massive jump and we had a good chance to win it. But I think deep down, the club will be happy that they've changed manager and managed to move forward in regards to league position. It's also consolidated their Champions League now, so they can continue to bring in new players and better players. They'll probably lose one or two good players this season. I know we didn't see much of Tobin Heath anyway, but there's always rumours about Miedemar, and so they'll have a couple of changes this season, I'm sure. But they're on safe ground now, aren't they, compared to this time last season where there was on rocky ground?
Yeah, no, I fully agree. And yeah, I think that they will have slight regret, but it's you have to be consistent for 22 games. All ifs and buts, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously Chelsea having a slightly stronger squad does help, but and the consistency. You've got to remember it's only the Arsenal manager's first season, so I think the Arsenal board will be quite happy with how it gone, but they'll be wanting to challenge. They'll be wanting to get that one step further next season. I think if Arsenal do back the manager, they've got a real chance. But obviously, we got it set with City now. They're just going to get better, aren't they? As long as surely they couldn't have that bad luck 2 seasons in a row where they had a lot of injuries.
I think it works. Sorry, Anthony, but I think it does kind of work a bit both ways as well. So, as much as I said that we're further behind the top 3, if you have a look, if you start talking about bad luck, it's very bad luck the amount of goals that we kind of conceded in the last couple of minutes, or the way we conceded them. A very sloppy back pass, for example, 2 in one game. I think that doesn't always happen. There are moments throughout the game where, and I know Jamie Spencer mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, if not last week, there are periods of the game where United have dropped points and it's almost like a freak. It's like, can you believe that's happened?
Yeah.
So, I think you can go through everyone's season and think, if only this didn't happen.
Yeah.
But I do definitely think that we need to, if City, Chelsea and Arsenal have a transfer window and they graded 6 or 7, then we need to have at least a 9 just to kind of get level with them. It's that way for me. So, the top 3 will obviously naturally improve. I'm sure of that. They won't get any worse. But we need to not just match them, we need to go above and beyond.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. It's going to be a big summer for Skinner, certainly. So that's the top 3 discussed. Obviously, City will be happy they got that third after a sticky start. We'll touch a bit on the middle sides then. So you got Spurs, Brighton, Everton, West Ham, Reading. That's from 5th to 9th.
Yeah.
Out of them teams, who would you say will be happiest at where they finished? Would that have been positions where they would have thought? And Reading might be slightly disappointed, but they did lose quite a bit of experience.
Yeah, that is true. Reading went through quite a bit of a rebuild in the summer, didn't they? So that's understandable. I do get that. I think West Ham, Brighton and Reading, I think those 3 teams are in that area where they're not necessarily happy, but they're not disappointed. I think the team above them, Spurs, should be happy, to finish 5th. admittedly a long way away. It ended up, 10 points away from fourth, 15 points away from Champions League. So I don't think they'll be necessarily happy with the opportunity that they had at the start of the season, how much they drifted off at the end. But that's obviously the difference between squad depth again and the quality there. I think Tottenham should be happy. If it's the start of the season, he says, right, Tottenham, you're going to finish fifth, best of the rest, then they'll be happy with that. I don't think they would have expected to finish fourth this season, certainly not higher. Potentially looking at United, they might have thought to themselves, well, we got a chance to get above United, but realistically, I don't think that was the case. So I think Tottenham should be happy with finishing fifth. But again, 15 points behind top three, maybe that's a little bit too much for them. West Ham, Brighton, Reading, I agree with yourself. I don't think there's too much there between them. Reading, they had a bit of a transition period. Did they genuinely think that they made their squad stronger over the summer? I don't think so. So I think to finish where they did, and they can build on that this summer. And then just mention Villa, who's ninth. I don't think that was such a bad season for them. I don't. I think they would have probably had maybe ambitions to maybe finish a little bit higher. But they're still a very inexperienced team at this level. Teams around them, they're not a million miles ahead. There might be in regards to club backing, but generally, I think to finish ninth for them, I think is a good season.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think Tottenham will be happy where they finish. They'll be looking to close the gap next season. Like we'll be looking to close the gap on top three.
Mm-hmm.
But if we were to close the gap on top three, then it's possible teams like Spurs could drift further back.
Mm-hmm.
But it all depends on the summer. Brings what gets brought in. We have this merry-go-round every season. It'll be interesting. Well, obviously there'll be a show about who's bought who and that before the season to start. I'm sure with the coverage we do.
Just before we move on, you did mention about Tottenham slipping further behind United, and I think that again, that's credit to United because in my opinion now it's not a top three, and it hasn't been a top three for 2 seasons. We have made it a top 4. It always used to be a top 3 in the WSL, whereas now it's a top 4. It's Tottenham slipping further away. So long as we keep on improving, and I keep bringing it back to United, I don't mean to.
That's fun.
The actual conversation there, Tottenham slipping further away. Credit to United because 2 seasons on the trot now, we've made it quite noticeable. It's a top 4.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. No, you're definitely right there. Regarding West Ham, I think West Ham will be happy mid-table.
Mm-hmm.
Last season they struggled to pick points up at home, and they've done all right at home this season. They got the point obviously against us. New manager, but they've been consistent this season with managers and that, not like the likes of. We'll briefly discuss Everton in a minute, but they've had Ollie Harder, who's worked hard behind the scenes. But it'll be interesting for West Ham as well. Obviously, Lisa Evans will go back to Arsenal, her parent club. They're losing the experience of Gilly Flaherty. She's announced that she's leaving. So with West Ham, it will be important that they do replace that experience, because when you look at Reading, did they really replace it? They got Natasha Harding, but or was it Natasha Dowie, one of them?
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't really do much in a sense where they managed to stay steady where they are. I think Reading will probably be slightly disappointed where they finished. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that midfield three, that middle pack of 3, West Ham, Brighton, Reading, I think they need to show ambition now. because you saw Everton try, this time last season, Everton was kind of in that kind of pack a little bit higher because obviously we tipped, we've done more than tip and we beat them quite comfortably, but they showed that ambition to push on. It didn't work out for them, but at least they tried and they went to get some of the best players that was available at the time. I think West Ham and Reading and Brighton, they now need to do that or else they'll get left further and further behind. So there's plenty of players out there now across Europe who want to come to the WSL. It's a great conversation to have because I think the WSL is one of the most competitive leagues out there. It's getting stronger and stronger. The reason why we don't necessarily win Champions League games is because there's certain teams out there that hoard all the best players across Europe. That there's, for example, the Spanish or French league, you've got like one or two very top clubs where all the good players tend to go to those clubs. In the WSL, it's spread across. So West Ham, Brighton, and Tottenham and Reading, they need to start getting some of these top players in now, and they've started that. Of course, they have, but these players are going to continue to come in to this league, and they need to have a big piece of that pie this summer, or else they'll either get left behind or they'll just never catch up. So I think the club there who shows that most ambition will obviously, I'm not going to say it favours them too much because we saw what happened with Everton, but if things are steady behind the scenes, then they do stand a lot better chance than the teams who don't show ambition.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It is important that they do spend and get, but not just spend, get the quality they need in. Yeah, it backfired for Everton. We'll discuss Everton in a minute shortly, but you are right. If they don't improve their sides, they are in danger of drifting further away. So no, I fully agree. It's very important, and they replace the experience, like I said, the lots of Flaherty, because if they don't, it will hurt them.
Mm-hmm. And they're well-experienced WSL clubs as well. It's not like United, who are fairly new to the league. Tottenham, Leicester, Villa, all these clubs potentially could go above those other teams. You could argue that Tottenham and United already have. So they don't want to start falling down to a point where they're in a relegation battle like Birmingham obviously have this season and Bristol the previous season. These are well-established WSL clubs that have probably been fairly comfortable over the last few years, knowing that they'll stay in the league and they've got no chance of being relegated, maybe pick up a good cup run. But they've got to move on there, because if they don't, other clubs around them will invest and they will start finding themselves in difficulty, especially next season with Liverpool coming up.
Exactly. Yeah, you only have to look at Liverpool though. They obviously got the scenes. They got a bit too big. Like they probably thought like they were like Brighton, Everton, West Ham, Reading. They're comfortable mainstay in the WSL. They never go down, and they did. So you definitely have to be on your toes in this league. And like you said, no disrespect to Birmingham, I think Liverpool are a much better team, and I think we will see that. I think Liverpool won't make the same mistakes they did a couple of seasons ago. So yeah, it will be a very competitive league next season. So going to move on to the bottom three now then. Obviously, Birmingham got relegated on 11 points. Then you had Leicester that finished on 13 points. We'll be grateful that Birmingham were worse than them. And then you had Everton, who finished 10th. Now, Everton were bitterly disappointed with how their season went. It was a bit of all over the place, wasn't it? Up like a bit rocky. They had a third manager. It wasn't like they didn't get the backing in the summer. I know we've mentioned it before, but why did it go so wrong for Everton?
I think sometimes you can try and go too far too soon, and if the foundations aren't in place, then it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. I think the players who came the Swedish contingency came in a little bit later. So that probably didn't help the start of the season. the swapping and changing of the manager as soon as certain players was adjusted, they probably got ripped apart again. I'm never a big fan of changing the manager, especially twice in a season, but 3 times is ridiculous. I think Everton would probably look back and think, okay, can we do a few things differently? The club, and I'll definitely say yes. You know, they'd have to say yes. They probably thought they made the right decision at the time, but that was far too rash. Sometimes you just need to stick with experience and managers and coaching staff who actually know the players and know what they was about to set up. But generally, they had no fight to them from the games that I saw. And to be fair, I probably only saw about 4 or 5 across the whole season. That's not including against United as well. But they weren't great. They had no stability. As soon as they managed to get one game, as soon as they managed to get one win, they could never really back it up and go on to a run. Cup games, you know, nothing to shout about there. And they'll be bitterly disappointed with the ambition that they showed over the summer. The players that have come in probably expected to fight for Champions League. That's probably what they was told. And now it's going to be a struggle to potentially keep some of those players. They've got to kind of reset a little bit this summer, and you know, not kind of punch above the weight, realise where they are, and probably just look at the league and think, okay, so where realistically do we need to be next year? Top 3, top 4 is probably going to be at the question, hopefully, and then they can start building a squad and building a coaching team and whoever, getting that philosophy there that's going to get them to at least mid-table. Because if they carried on, if the season continued, who knows what could have potentially happened. You know, I'm not saying that Birmingham or Leicester would have caught them, but I don't think Everton was actually going to do themselves any favours. So yeah, bitterly disappointing for Everton. Even more so the fact that the fans and everybody and the club said, oh, you know, Champions League's our ambition and they're going to finish above United. It just goes to show it doesn't matter who you sign in the summer. It's got to be the right signing. It doesn't matter how good the player is. They've got to fit in with the system. They've got to settle. You know, I think this is where, you know, some clubs go wrong. You know, you might bring a signing in thinking, oh, this is a fantastic player, but just because she's fantastic in a different country or because she was fantastic last season, it doesn't mean there's going to be fantastic this season in a different league with a different weather climate and a different language, all this kind of stuff. There's a lot that goes into buying a player. And I think, you know, we've kind of seen that with Everton. You know, it's gone massively downhill for them this season.
Yeah, no, you made some really valid points. They'll look at the season, think where have they gone wrong. They are going to have to do a bit more of a rebuild. I think a few of the players will go, and they already are, a few of them. I think they'll be looking at the table where the mid-table next season, I think, will be a realistic target for them. Mm-hmm. But they have to go about it the right way. It's good getting the quantity of players they got, but they need to get players that are going to improve the squad, and they're going to be able to cope with the WSL. Maybe it's taking a bit of time for the players they did get in, but unfortunately, I think a few of the players they did get in will be out the door. I don't think they'll be mainstays. So obviously, Everton will be bitterly disappointed with how the season went, but they'll just be glad that they got enough points to survive. We'll move on to Villa and Leicester. No, we've spoken about Villa. Sorry, we'll speak about Leicester and Birmingham. Mm-hmm. Leicester, will they be relieved just to secure safety for a second season?
100%, absolutely. When you're bottom of Christmas without even any points, of course you are. We said on previous shows, I've done really well to get 13 points in the second half of the season, and we kind of praised Leicester up for that reason. You know, well done to them. You know, they finished the season fairly well in that aspect. But then Birmingham was only 2 points away from them, and apparently Birmingham had a disaster of a season. So it's interesting how you look at it. The fact is, Leicester was only one game away from being relegated, and of course, the aim of the game for Leicester was obviously to secure WSL, and they achieved that. They have to be looking over their shoulder next season, thinking, right, Birmingham swapping with Liverpool, and Liverpool are going to be more of a threat than what Birmingham was this year. So Leicester's got to be looking around thinking, right, what is the one club next season? What is the one team that we're going to finish above this next season? Now, I know that's very depressing for them. I'm sure as a club and as owners, they'll be looking at a bigger question than that. Can we get to mid-table and push on from there? But realistically, if you have a look at, I'll throw the question to you, Anthony. If you're Leicester right now and you're looking at that league next season, what one club are you going to be looking at to catch?
Yeah, you make a good point. Looking at it, you think Villa are going to be one of the teams that could possibly. I think if you're looking at them, it will be Villa, because I don't think it'll be Liverpool. I think Liverpool won't make the same mistake again.
Mm-hmm.
I think if they're looking to just stay in the league and not, well, they'll want to improve, and they've got to improve if they want to stay in this league. But for me, currently, they'd be looking at Villa as the one they have to definitely get more points than, because I don't think that teams like Everton will have such a bad season next season.
I agree.
The top 3-4 are just going to get better.
Do you expect Liverpool? Do you expect Liverpool to do better than Birmingham next season? I do.
Yes, I do. Yeah, I think Liverpool will probably do better than Villa, but that's another time for another show as well, which we'll all talk about, I'm sure, as this season comes nearer for next season. Just Villa for me. I just think Carla Ward's done a good job with what she's got, and she'll be looking for more. But there are certain players you've got to replace. As Asita Asante, who's retired, so they're losing that experience. So they need to buy. Well, it's going to be an interesting season next year, I feel, because I do think you look at Everton, if they did have a really bad season, or even the likes of Reading could get sucked into it. So I think there'll be about 3 or 4 teams that will be down there towards the end of the season. But like this season, by February, March, it'll be quite clear who's in major trouble, like this season, really, and the season before, which there's normally one team, or there has been certainly the last couple of seasons, where they've been clearly in trouble, and it's shown. Fortunately for Birmingham, we'll discuss Birmingham quickly. It had been coming, hadn't it? Last season there was rest about where they were changing and their training facilities. Escaped relegation last season due to Bristol City being worse. But it was coming, wasn't it, John? They didn't really improve in terms of quality, and for me it was coming. Although for me they did have the surprise of the season being Arsenal. Would you agree there?
Yeah, I do, and it was good to see that, because it shut quite a few fans up at both ends of the table. It showed. We didn't predict that ourselves. You can never predict bottom of the league was going to win top of the league. And obviously, if Arsenal took the foot off the pedal, they won't do that again. And it gave Birmingham hope, and it kind of rattled Leicester as well, because at that point, Leicester was in a worse position than they were what they finished. What I would say is, though, Birmingham are 2 points away, and I still think potentially, and this might sound a little bit crazy, but over the course of the season, I think they were still a bit more steady. It's just that Leicester kind of had a bit of a purple patch where they accumulated a big chunk of their points kind of together in one short time.
They got 6 of them against Birmingham as well.
That's obviously key, isn't it? And that's a great point as well. Leicester done their bits. They probably got into Christmas thinking, right, these are 2 games that we must win. The two Birmingham games, sorry, that Leicester won. And then if he can just pick up a few more along the way, then he should be okay. I bet you Leicester never thought that Birmingham would probably pick up 11 points. But I'm sure that on the flip side at Christmas, Birmingham probably never thought that Leicester would pick up 13 points in the second half. So I think it was tight. I know everyone's saying that, Leicester done well to accumulate those points and Birmingham had a real tough season. But, only 2 points behind Birmingham were with a better goal average, a slightly better goal average. Then, I don't think it was I think it was a lot closer than people thought. One more game next season, next week, if we had one, who knows what would have happened.
Yeah, it'd have been interesting if it was Leicester Birmingham.
yeah, definitely.
But not to be, and unfortunately for Birmingham, they end the season relegated. So the prediction, it was 11-6 to me this week. Over the season, I did win 221 to 193, so a 28-point gap. I thoroughly enjoyed it this season, and we will be looking to improve it next season with the likes of guests joining in and you viewers that I have to thank for tuning in and giving your opinions at times in the comments. And it would be nice if we can do a few more live shows next season, which I'm sure will be feasible. But before I do go, I want to touch on a couple of things. I want your player of the season, and then I want your United player of the season.
Okay. Player of the season. I'm going to have to go for one of the top ones. You could go for one of the lower ones who obviously performed well, but I think that the top 3 teams obviously stand out massively. You could quite easily go for Sam Kerr, obviously scoring the amount of goals that she scored. But obviously the whole squad has played really well. So she's on my mind. Also players, got quite a few there. I can't believe I might throw his name out there as well, but I think Alex Greenwood for Man City has had a very, very stable season playing centre back. I think when she played us, she done really well. So I'll probably put Alex Greenwood up there as well. But I can't choose Alex, so I'm going to go for Sam Kerr.
Yeah, no, we agree with that. I just think she finished it not just for her goals and that, but she had a month off in the Asia Cup. Came back. I'm not sure how many times they played in that month due to the COVID and all that. But she then came back and still finished top scorer. So I'm not sure if she actually missed any games or if she missed a couple of games. But she still came back after all that, where she was playing games and still managed to get a WSL top scorer. And her goals made all the difference, really, didn't they? Like, obviously,
Yeah.
So for me, Sam Kerr. But like you said, there was a few people. Like, if you're talking out of the top 4, Ashley Neville, she had quite a good season. So
we renewed the contract as well. She's in quite a few people's player of the season. Yeah,
you got Maya Letitia from Brighton. She had a consistent season. So if you're looking at people out of the top four, then there are a couple of names. But I have to agree with you with Sam Kerr. Now, what about your United player of the season? And it'll be interesting to see if we have the same person or if we've gone slightly different. And mine was at 2 people.
Okay.
I reckon they're probably the same 2 people.
Possibly not. I think we've got something going on at the moment on the fans forum on a Friday night where viewers, contributors, guests on the show can all nominate two people, and Connor's putting a bit of a chart together. And at the moment, Russo's running away with it. So people are nominating 2 players, and Russo is in everyone's 2 players, and I can see why I'm choosing Russo for this question as well, Anthony. Just because I think without her we would have been lost. I think across the midfield, if things have had to change, then I think we would have had people there to step in. We can see that the defence have stepped in because we've had injuries there. Mary Earps had a decent season. I don't think she's been great, but I think she's had a best season with us. But I don't think she deserves player of the season. Tooney had a fantastic first half of the season, but for whatever reason, when she come back, I think after Christmas or the Lionesses or some sort of international duty, things just weren't quite clicking forward towards the end of the season. Where I think with Russo, you know, she has been, well, we would have been lost without her, definitely. She has been really good, you know, playing out wide, playing up the front, you know, holding the ball up, playing so many variations of her striking role. You know, I would have to go for Russo.
Yeah, no, we do agree on that as well. Like you said, without her goals, her hold-up player, yeah, we could have been we could have been nearer to Tottenham than we were to City. So I fully agree with you. I think, and for whatever reason, she's obviously tired herself out, but I still don't understand why Mark took her off in certain games, especially when you need a goal. You're taking your main attacking threat, and that is where the squad depth comes in. We want to have someone that can come on where we're not thinking, oh, we've taken our best player off, where we're going to get the goals from. We need to have that quality where, oh yeah, she's gone off, but she's coming on. We'll still get a goal. And with Russo, it's different types of goal as well. She's great in the air. She's great with her feet. Like you said, with Tooney, she had a brilliant first half of the season. I think the second half, she went off the boil slightly, and that's why I couldn't go for Tooney. Russo was consistent, more out of anyone. So for me, it was Russo. So with that being said, that is the end of the show. Like I said, thanks this year for giving me the opportunity to do this show, John. And thanks, viewers, for tuning in and letting us know all your opinions. Before we do go, do you want to explain what's on this week?
Yeah, so if you missed last night, Joe, we had Chelsea fans, Chelsea writers on talking obviously about Chelsea, but also how they think Man United have fared and what the differences are between Chelsea and United, and potentially how United can close the gap next season. So that's obviously a great show. So make sure that you go back and check that one out. That was really good. Friday Night Fans Forum tonight, and of course Saturday Night Live with Ben and Matt on Saturday. Just because the season's over, it doesn't mean that we're stopping the content. We're just obviously changing the content. So this channel's been going for 20 months now. We've been chatting about the women's team during COVID, during summer breaks. There's absolutely plenty of things for us to be getting into. And thank you, Anthony, for hosting this show for the past 9 months or so. It's been really interesting, really exciting. We will change it maybe slightly going into next season to try and involve more people. But it's been really enjoyable. Thank you, Anthony.
No worries. And will you be... Let's give it a shout out to Stour, who are now going to be in the 4th tier. Will you be there Sunday, John?
Not this Sunday, but I'll be at the cup final the Sunday after, which is the 22nd. Absolutely fantastic to them. I know a lot of people are also United now, and on my Twitter have been asking me and looking out for their results as well. They got promoted as champions, and now they've got a cup final to look forward to as well. So potentially do the league and cup double.
That's awesome, John. And so that's the end. We'll see you bright and bushy end of August, beginning of September. I hope you all have a great summer and enjoy the Euros. Hopefully the Lionesses can get us to another final, and who knows when, potentially. But saying that, thanks for listening throughout the year, and take care.